Charlie Munger called it a total nightmare. He said the first $100,000 is a bitch. He wasn't exaggerating. Most people spend their entire lives chasing a number they will never touch, not because they lack talent, but because they don't understand the invisible wall standing between 0 and 6 figures. It is the most brutal, soul-crushing phase of wealth creation. If you've ever felt like you're running on a treadmill that's slowly being tilted upward while the air gets thinner, you aren't imagining things. You are caught in the gravity well of poverty. Right now, there is a mathematical conspiracy working against you, a force so powerful it keeps 90% of the population locked in a cycle of permanent mediocrity. But here is the secret most gurus won't tell you: once you cross that $100,000 threshold, the laws of physics literally change. Money starts behaving differently. It stops being something you hunt and starts being something that hunts for you. But getting there, it requires a psychological transformation so radical it feels like breaking your own bones to reset them. We are going to deconstruct the terrifying math of the first 100 grand and reveal the exact moment that velocity shift occurs. If you missed the transition point we're discussing in Part 4, you will likely stay broke for the next 20 years. Imagine working 40 hours a week just to stay in the same place. That is the reality for most, but there is a glitch in the system. A way to bypass the friction that kills most portfolios before they even hit 5 digits. Have you ever wondered why the rich seem to get richer while doing less? It's not just connections or luck. It is a phenomenon called the critical mass effect, and until you hit it, you are effectively a slave to the clock. But the first $100,000. That is where the blood is shed. Let's look at the numbers that should terrify you, but will actually set you free. The math of the first $100,000 is objectively disgusting. Let's say you're saving $10,000 a year. To reach that first milestone, it's going to take you a full decade of deprivation, discipline, and saying no to every single impulse. During those 10 years, your money does almost nothing. It sits there, cold and stagnant. If you earn a 7% return on your first $10,000, you've made $700. That's it. $700 for a year of sacrifice. It's barely enough to cover a single car repair or a high-end grocery run. This is the valley of death. This is where most people quit. They look at their tiny gains, compare them to the massive effort of saving, and conclude that investing doesn't work. They see the tiny ripple in their bank account and decide to buy a new truck or a vacation instead. They don't realize they were standing inches away from the great pivot. Because while that first $10,000 earned you $700, the leap from $900,000 to $1 million earns you $63,000 in interest alone, without you lifting a single finger. The effort remains the same, but the output scales exponentially. You are currently fighting a war where the enemy has all the ammunition. In the beginning, 100% of your wealth growth is fueled by your labor. Your sweat. Your missed sleep. You are the engine. But there is a specific, hidden reason why the United Kingdom and the United States are designed to make this first stage feel impossible. The tax codes, the inflation rates, and the cost of living are precisely calibrated to drain your investment fuel before it can reach critical temperature. It's a race against a melting clock. If you don't reach the $100,000 mark fast enough, inflation will eat your progress faster than you can build it. But what if I told you the hardest part isn't the money at all? The real barrier is a psychological trap that has been hardwired into your brain since birth, designed to keep you from ever seeing the second stage of the game. Why does the first $100,000 feel like a mountain while the next million feels like a downhill slide? It's because of the dispersal effect. When you have $0, every unexpected bill is a catastrophe. A flat tire isn't just an inconvenience, it's a financial setback that wipes out 3 months of savings. When you are building that first $100,000, you are playing defense and offense simultaneously, and you're losing on both fronts. Your survival costs consume the vast majority of your income. If you earn $50,000 and spend $45,000 to live, you only have $5,000 of war chest money. To get to $100,000, you need 20 years of that grind. But here is where the suspense builds. The moment you hit six figures, your survival cost stays relatively flat while your capital gains begin to explode. You stop being a person who saves and start being a person who owns. Ownership is the only way out of the rat race, but ownership requires a buy-in price that most people find too high to pay. Think about the mental toll. You are watching your friends go on trips. You are watching them buy houses with massive mortgages they can't afford. You are sitting there with $40,000 in a brokerage account, feeling like a loser because your life looks smaller than theirs. This is the social pressure trap. It is a psychological war of attrition. The system is designed to make you feel poor while you are actually becoming wealthy. But there's a darker side to this. There is a specific mathematical dead zone between $40,000 and $80,000 where most people experience a total nervous breakdown. They've worked so hard, for so long, and yet they still feel light years away from freedom. They are in the middle of the ocean, having lost sight of the shore they left, but unable to see the island ahead. This is where the millionaire ghost appears, the temptation to give up right before the compounding kicks in. But wait until you see what happens at the $100,001 mark. At $100,000, something miraculous happens. It's the crossover point. This is the moment where your money starts earning more in a year than many people save in a year. If you have $100,000 invested and the market has a good year, you might wake up $10,000 or $15,000 richer without doing a single minute of work. That is passive momentum. Now, compare that to the person who has $5,000. To get that same $10,000 gain, they have to work 500 hours at a $20 per hour job. You are now earning time. This is the secret currency of the elite. While the world is trading their lives for dollars, you are starting to use dollars to buy back your life. But why is it so much harder to get that first chunk? Because of the cost of knowledge and the cost of mistakes. When you start, you are stupid. We all are. You make bad investments. You pay too much in fees. You panic sell when the market dips. These mistakes at the beginning are lethal. A 20% loss on your first $10,000 feels like a punch to the gut and takes months to recover from. But by the time you reach the next million, you've been through the fire. You've developed the ice in the veins temperament required to handle market volatility. You have survived the psychological warfare. The first $100,000 isn't just about the money, it's about the person you have to become to earn it. You have to kill your old self, the impulsive, consumer-driven, short-term thinker, and birth a new version of yourself. A version that can stare at a red screen and feel nothing. But here is the terrifying truth, most people are trying to build a skyscraper on a foundation of sand. They try to skip the $100,000 grind by looking for moonshots and get-rich-quick schemes. They don't realize that the grind is the foundation. Without the discipline learned in the first $100,000, you will lose the next million even faster than you made it. Do you know the number one reason lottery winners go broke? It's because they skipped the first $100,000. Let's talk about the gravity of zero. In the United States and the UK, debt is the default setting. From the moment you turn 18, you are hunted by credit card offers and student loans. You start your journey not at zero, but in a deep hole. To even get to the starting line of the first $100,000, you often have to climb out of a -$30,000 or -$50,000 pit. This is why the first milestone feels like a marathon in a swamp. You are paying interest instead of receiving it. You are literally fueling someone else's next million with your monthly payments. This is the ultimate irony of the financial system. the poor pay for the wealth of the rich through interest. Breaking this cycle is like trying to escape a black hole. You need escape velocity. You have to burn an incredible amount of fuel, meaning your energy and time, just to break free from the pull of debt. Once you are in orbit, the $100,000 mark, you can shut off the engines and glide. The resistance vanishes. But getting to that orbit, it requires a level of intensity that is socially weird. You have to be the person who brings their lunch to work. You have to be the person who drives the 10-year-old car. You have to be the person who says, I can't afford that, even when you have $50,000 in the bank. People will judge you. They will think you're failing because they equate spending with having. But you aren't failing, you're fueling. You are accumulating the dry powder necessary for the explosion. But here's the twist, the moment you hit $100,000, those same people will start asking you for advice or calling you lucky. They didn't see the years you spent in the dark, fighting the gravity of zero. They didn't see the nights you spent staring at spreadsheets while they were watching Netflix. But there is a massive danger waiting for you at the $75,000 mark. It is the false summit, and it ruins more portfolios than any market crash ever could. The false summit is a psychological phenomenon where you feel like you've made it because you have more money than you've ever seen, but you haven't actually reached the crossover point yet. At $75,000, you feel rich. You look at your balance and think, I could buy a Porsche. Or, I could finally take that luxury vacation. This is the most dangerous moment in your entire financial life. Because at $75,000, your money still doesn't have enough mass to grow on its own. If you stop now, or if you bleed the account for a lifestyle upgrade, you reset the clock. You fall back into the gravity well. The difference between $75,000 and $100,000 is only $25,000, but emotionally, it's the hardest gap to bridge. Why? Because the new car smell of your success is starting to intoxicate you. You've been deprived for so long that your brain is screaming for a reward. But if you take the reward now, you kill the golden goose before it's even laid an egg. To get the next million, you have to realize that $100,000 is not spending money. It is seed money. It is a collection of 100,000 little soldiers that you are sending out to war. If you spend them, your army gets smaller. If you keep them, they recruit more soldiers. By the time you hit $1 million, your army is so large that even if 50,000 soldiers die in a bad year, you still have 950,000 fighting for you. But at the beginning, if you lose 10,000 soldiers, you're back to square one. This is the fragility phase. Everything is fragile. Your job, your car, your health, your discipline. One wrong move and the dream evaporates. But if you can just push through that last $25,000, something happens to your brain. You stop thinking in terms of, what can I buy, and start thinking in terms of, what can I build? This shift in perspective is the true mark of the wealthy. But how do you actually survive the boredom of the middle? How do you keep going when the numbers are moving so slowly it feels like watching paint dry? The secret to surviving the first $100,000 is gamification. You have to stop looking at the final goal and start looking at the rate of change. If you only focus on the $100,000, you will be miserable for years. But if you focus on increasing your savings rate by 1% every month, you create a series of mini-wins. This is how you trick your dopamine system into supporting your long-term goals instead of sabotaging them. That next million is easier because by then, the wins are automatic. You don't need to trick your brain anymore, the results are so obvious they provide their own motivation. Imagine waking up and realizing your investments made $2,000 while you were asleep. That is a high no drug can match. But to get there, you have to endure the desert of silence. The first $100,000 is silent. No one claps for you. No one notices. In fact, the world will actively try to take it from you. In the US and UK, the cost of convenience is a tax on the impatient. Every Uber Eats order, every subscription service, every buy now, pay later offer is a trap designed to keep you from hitting that six-figure mark. They want you to stay in the active income trap forever. Why? Because a person with $100,000 in the bank is a person who can say no. You can say no to a toxic boss. You can say no to a bad deal. You can say no to a life you hate. $100,000 is FU money in its most basic form. It is the price of freedom. The next million is just the price of luxury, but the first $100,000 is the price of your soul. This is why the struggle is so intense. You are fighting for your autonomy. But there's a statistical anomaly you need to be aware of. People who reach $100,000 through a windfall, like an inheritance or a lucky crypto bet, almost always lose it. Why? Because they didn't build the financial calluses required to keep it. The hardest part isn't a bug, it's a feature. It's the training ground. Let's look at the snowball velocity. Imagine a tiny snowball at the top of a mountain. To get it moving, you have to push it. You have to use your own physical strength to roll it over and over. It's heavy, it's cold, and it's barely growing. This is your first $20,000. You are doing all the work. But as the snowball gets bigger, it starts to pick up more snow with every rotation. By the time it's halfway down the mountain, it has so much mass and momentum that you couldn't stop it if you tried. It's moving under its own power. This is the transition from the first $100,000 to the first million. The effort-to-result ratio flips. In the beginning, it's 99% effort for 1% result. At the end, it's 1% effort for 99% result. This is the unfair advantage of the wealthy. They aren't working 100 times harder than you, their money is just working 100 times harder than yours. This is a concept called capital efficiency. Your labor is the least efficient way to make money. It is limited by your time, your energy, and your health. Capital, however, never sleeps. It doesn't get sick. It doesn't need a vacation. It doesn't care about inflation if it's invested correctly. But you cannot deploy capital until you have accumulated it. This is the catch-22 of poverty. You need money to make money, but you need to work to get money. The only way out is to over-leverage your discipline in the early years. You have to live like a monk so you can eventually live like a king. Most people try to live like a prince in the middle, and as a result, they remain a peasant forever. They spend their seed corn instead of planting it. But wait, what if you're starting late? What if you're 30, 40, or 50 and you don't have that first $100,000? Is it over for you? Not even close. In fact, you have one advantage that a 20-year-old doesn't have, and it's the one thing that can accelerate the first $100,000 by 500%. Your high-value skill is the nitrous oxide in your financial engine. If you are trying to save $100,000 on a $30,000 salary, the math is against you. It's almost impossible. But if you spend your energy increasing your earning capacity first, moving from $30,000 to $80,000, the first $100,000 happens in a fraction of the time. The biggest mistake people make is focusing solely on saving, when they should be focusing on scaling. You can only cut your expenses so far. You can't live on zero. But your income potential is theoretically infinite. In the US and UK markets, there is a massive shortage of high-level problem solvers. If you can solve $100,000 problems, you will get paid $100,000. This is the second engine. While your savings are growing slowly through compounding, your income can grow rapidly through skill acquisition. When these two forces, compounding and scaling, you hit the $100,000 mark like a freight train. And once you hit it with a high income, the jump to the next million isn't a 30-year grind, it's a 5 to 7 year sprint. This is how the new rich are doing it. They aren't just clipping coupons, they are building income machines that feed their wealth machines. This is the double helix of wealth. But even with a high income, there is one thing that can still destroy you. It's called lifestyle creep. It's the tendency to increase your spending as your income rises. It is the silent killer of the middle class. They earn $150,000 but they spend $145,000. They are just rich slaves. They have the high-stress job without the financial freedom. They are still in the gravity well, just at a higher altitude. To truly break free, you have to maintain this gap. The gap between what you earn and what you spend is the only thing that matters. The wider the gap, the faster you reach the crossover point. But what happens once you actually cross it? What does it feel like to finally be on the other side? Crossing the $100,000 mark is a spiritual experience. It's the moment the financial fog lifts. You realize that you are no longer a victim of circumstances. You have options. And options are the true definition of wealth. You can breathe. You can think clearly. You can take risks that you couldn't afford to take when you were at zero. This is why the next million is so much faster, because you can play the game with house money. You can invest in a startup, you can buy a rental property, you can wait for a market crash and buy the dip while everyone else is panicking. You are no longer playing to survive, you are playing to win. The first $100,000 is the trial by fire. It proves you have the character, the grit, and the vision to handle true wealth. If you can do the first $100,000, you've already done the hardest work. The rest is just math and patience. The next million is a mathematical certainty if you don't change your habits. So, if you're struggling right now, if you're looking at your tiny balance and feeling defeated, remember this: you are currently in the most important phase of your life. You are building the foundation. Every dollar you save today is worth $10 in the future. Don't trade your future freedom for a temporary dopamine hit. Stay in the fight. Embrace the bitch that is the first $100,000. Because on the other side of that number is a life that 99% of people will only ever see in movies. You are the architect of your own liberation. The gravity is heavy now, but the stars are waiting. If you made it this far, you have the attention span required to actually become wealthy. Comment velocity below if you're committed to hitting your first $100,000 no matter how long it takes. Subscribe if you want to master the math that the system wants you to ignore. Your first million is waiting, but it starts with the next dollar. Get to work.